Britain is on the brink of collapse, and the warning signs are flashing brighter than ever. A massive economic crisis is gripping the nation, and with it comes a wave of redundancies, financial turmoil, and social chaos that could define the next decade. The UK is bracing for the biggest redundancy round in 10 years, with businesses forced to cut jobs at unprecedented levels. Workers across the country are waking up to the terrifying reality that their livelihoods are no longer secure. Rachel Reeves, now at the centre of this unfolding disaster, has been issued a dire warning: act now or risk plunging the nation into an economic abyss. Employers are making brutal cuts, and the latest data paints an even darker picture. Job vacancies have fallen yet again, slipping by 9,000 in just 3 months. With confidence in hiring dropping to levels last seen during the worst days of the COVID-19 pandemic, it's clear that businesses no longer see a future for expansion. Instead, they are tightening their belts, preparing for what could be the most severe economic downturn in a generation. And it's not just the job market that's taking a hit. Businesses themselves are under immense pressure. The upcoming hikes in employer national insurance contributions and the national living wage are making it almost impossible for small and medium-sized businesses to stay afloat. A staggering 41% of business leaders believe that unless serious regulatory changes are made, there is no hope for economic recovery. The pressure is mounting, and experts are warning that immediate government intervention is needed to prevent the worst-case scenario from playing out. Meanwhile, wage growth has hit an 8-month high, with regular pay increasing by 5.9% in the last quarter. But while that might sound like good news, it's merely a smokescreen. Real wages have been struggling for over a decade, and despite temporary gains, the underlying economy is failing to grow. Inflation remains a looming threat, and economists warn that this brief wage surge is unlikely to last. With job security crumbling beneath workers' feet, the future of the UK's labour market has never been more uncertain. Financial planners are already warning employees to brace for impact. Mortgage payments are at risk, savings will be depleted, and those without proper financial protection could be plunged into a nightmare of debt and uncertainty. This isn't just speculation, it's happening right now as redundancy notices begin rolling out across industries nationwide. And while the economy spirals out of control, the UK's justice system is facing a crisis of its own. In a shocking move, up to 390 prisoners are being released today in a desperate attempt to tackle the overcrowding catastrophe gripping the country's prisons. Yes, you heard that right. Hundreds of inmates are being set free, and this is just the beginning. The Scottish Government's controversial early release scheme will see prisoners serving sentences of less than 4 years let out after serving just 40% of their time instead of 50%. Officials claim this will reduce overcrowding by 5%, but many fear that it's nothing more than a reckless gamble with public safety. Government officials are quick to insist that violent and sexual offenders will not be included in the release scheme, but can they really be trusted? The UK's justice system has been under immense strain for years, and this move is being viewed by many as a last-ditch attempt to prevent a full-scale collapse. But if there's one thing that's clear, it's that the prison system is completely overwhelmed. The numbers are staggering. The UK's prison population has skyrocketed by over 40,000 since the early 1990s, with England and Wales now having one of the highest incarceration rates in Western Europe. The government has promised 14,000 new prison places by 2031, but experts say that's nowhere near enough. Without immediate action, the prison population could reach 112,300 by the end of the decade. The early release scheme is being rolled out in stages, with the next waves set to take place in March. This means that in just a few weeks, hundreds more prisoners will be back on the streets. Critics are warning that this reckless approach could have disastrous consequences, especially with crime rates already on the rise. The government claims this will help ease the burden on the justice system, but is this really the best solution? Or is this just another example of complete mismanagement and failure? And while the country descends further into crisis, Nigel Farage has just sent shockwaves through British politics. In a jaw-dropping revelation, the Reform UK leader has revealed the 3 words that drove him back into frontline politics: family, community, and country. Speaking at a packed conference, Farage made it clear that his return wasn't just about politics, it was about fundamentally reshaping the future of Britain. He slammed the current government for failing to inspire optimism, lamenting the country's declinist attitude and calling for a complete 180 shift in how the UK approaches success and prosperity. His words struck a nerve. Farage painted a picture of a Britain that had lost its way, where young people are being discouraged from striving for success, where hard work is no longer valued, and where another million young people are now on disability benefits due to depression. Farage didn't hold back, taking direct shots at Rachel Reeves and the Conservative Party. In a scathing remark, he said, "God, doesn't Rachel Reeves make you want to reach for the cry tissues?" And in a moment that sent the political world into a frenzy, he declared, "The right is not not split in this country. The Conservative Party is not on the right in any measurable way. This is more than just another speech. It's a declaration of war. Farage is back, and he's making it clear that he is coming for the establishment. His presence alone is sending shivers down the spines of the Conservative leadership. If Reform UK gains traction, it could rip the right-wing vote apart, paving the way for an unchallenged Labour victory. The battle lines have been drawn, and what happens next could change the political landscape forever. So, where does Britain go from here? With the economy crumbling, businesses shedding jobs at a terrifying rate, and crime becoming an ever-growing concern, the future looks more uncertain than ever. Rachel Reeves faces the biggest test of her political career. If she fails to act, mass unemployment could push the UK into a full-scale economic collapse. If the justice system continues to buckle under pressure, public safety could be put at serious risk. And if Farage continues his march back into politics, the Conservative Party could face an existential crisis. This is the moment of reckoning. The economy is failing, the justice system is breaking down, and British politics is more fractured than ever. Will the government be able to contain this disaster, or are we watching the beginning of a new era of chaos, instability, and uncertainty? One thing is for sure, Britain has never been closer to the edge. Britain is spiralling deeper into crisis, and the chaos is showing no signs of slowing down. As the biggest redundancy wave in a decade looms over the nation, businesses are scrambling to stay afloat, while workers brace for the worst. The UK's fragile economy is unravelling before our eyes, and with it comes a political storm that could shake the very foundations of Westminster. Rachel Reeves has been thrust into the eye of the storm, facing mounting pressure to take immediate action before the country plunges into economic turmoil. The numbers are terrifying. Job vacancies have fallen yet again, dropping by 9,000 in just 3 months, while business confidence is at its lowest point since the darkest days of the pandemic. More than 40% of business leaders now believe that without urgent intervention, Britain's economy will continue to nosedive. But as businesses prepare for mass redundancies, the real crisis is unfolding on the streets. The government's shocking decision to release nearly 400 prisoners today, with thousands more to follow, has left the public in disbelief. The reason? Britain's prisons are bursting at the seams, and ministers are scrambling for desperate solutions. This is not a drill. The first wave of the controversial early release scheme is now in motion, with hundreds of inmates walking free ahead of schedule. Officials insist that those convicted of violent and sexual offences will not be released, but many fear that public safety is being put at risk. And here's the real kicker. This is just the beginning. 2 more waves of prisoner releases are planned in early March, meaning that in just a few weeks, even more criminals will be back on the streets. This is not just a temporary fix. It's a sign of a justice system on the brink of total collapse. With crime already surging across the country, the question remains, is the government throwing fuel on the fire? Meanwhile, in the world of politics, Nigel Farage has just set the country ablaze with his latest revelation. The controversial Reform UK leader has finally broken his silence on why he returned to the political battlefield, and his answer has sent shockwaves through Westminster. Family, community, country. These 3 words, according to Farage, are what drove him back into the political arena, and he's not holding back. Standing before a massive audience at the Alliance for Responsible Citizenship conference, Farage ripped into the Conservative Party, calling it weak, uninspired, and completely detached from the right-wing values it once stood for. The right is not split in this country, he declared. The Conservative Party is not on the right in any measurable way. In one sweeping statement, Farage obliterated the Tories' credibility, painting them as nothing more than a watered-down version of Labour. But his speech didn't just target politicians, it was a call to arms for the British people. Farage blasted the culture of failure, warning that young people are being brainwashed into thinking success is bad, hard work is pointless, and ambition is something to be ashamed of. His words hit hard. We have got to start telling kids that hard work is good, that success is good, that there aren't any shortcuts in life, that making money is good. It was a direct attack on the progressive ideology that has swept through British institutions, and it resonated with a crowd that has grown tired of the establishment's empty promises. But just as Farage was regaining political ground, his enemies were already lining up to take him down. Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch launched a direct attack, dismissing Farage as nothing more than a man with a loud voice and no real plan. Strong men have lots of words, but no plan, she sneered. They promise everything and deliver nothing. Farage, never one to back down, fired back immediately, reminding the crowd of the optimism Britain once had, an optimism he claims was crushed by decades of weak leadership. And the real question remains, is this the beginning of a Conservative collapse? With Reform UK gaining traction, many believe that Farage's return could split the right-wing vote, paving the way for an uncontested Labour victory in the next election. And with the economy crumbling, job losses mounting, and public safety hanging in the balance, the future of Britain has never looked more uncertain. So what happens next? Will Rachel Reeves step up and stop the UK from sliding further into disaster? Will the mass prisoner releases lead to a surge in crime? And is Farage about to completely upend the political landscape? One thing is clear: Britain is on the edge of something massive, and we are watching it unfold in real time.